Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. Boys and girls, we got some more Q to talk about and some other things. So grab your coffee, fist bump your neighbor, and let's begin. I want to start you over here on my DropSpace today. This is another one of these alternative platforms that you are welcome to join. As you know, YouTube is going to be changing their policy in the next couple of days, and that's likely going to result in the dropping of the ban hammer on many content creator platforms, including yours truly. So if you are not joining me or your favorite content creator on one of these alternate channels, please do so because you are running out of time. Now, I want to thank those of you who've been joining me over there on BitChute. That seems to be a pretty popular platform. It's worked out pretty well for me too. It's not always perfect with my comment section doesn't really work, and oftentimes my videos get stuck in the processing mode. Just so you know, so if you're seeing late uploads on BitChute, it's not because I've forgotten to upload. It's because the actual processing takes a while. I will actually upload the video and then it's on BitChute's end to process it. Sometimes that processing gets stuck, which means I have to re-upload, and that could be hours upon hours of time. So just so you know, it's not perfect, but it definitely is another viable platform. And on that note, I wanted to turn you guys on to this DropSpace. As you can see, we have almost 1,200 people over here. Not a ton, but this is a pretty cool platform. This, like BitChute, sometimes can be very, very slow in the uploading process, and oftentimes I have to re-upload. But this is just one of those things that you deal with these up-and-coming platforms when they don't really have the necessary funding for all their hardware and software to kind of deal with all this. But this is a very cool layout for those of you who kind of like the YouTube-ish layout. And for me, the comment section works here. Now, I don't get a ton of views over here, so we don't have a real active comment section over here. But if you're of that mindset that you like to comment on videos and things like that, I love to read your comments. So this is a really cool new platform for you guys to try. If you would like to try it and maybe you're struggling with BitChute, this is another alternative for you. And just like my BitChute, this will be linked down below in the video description and is in every single video, or you can search me at IPOT 1776. All right, let's get started. Post 3655, 42 minutes after the hour of 11. Q takes us back to the 14th of August, 2018, post 1871. And this is just kind of a basic diagram, example 1.1. And we are talking about the Israeli intelligence structure, Mossad, alternative plus U.S. media, U.S. politicians. Keep in mind, there's a ton of U.S. politicians that have dual citizenship with Israel. That's not inherently a bad thing, but it most certainly is something to keep your eye on because it's pretty prevalent, right? Now, this kind of goes on and trickles down to alternative media sources and whatnot. These particular may have been specifics at the time, but Q is giving us an example here. Those who scream the loudest find the connections. 1, 1, 1, 1. Meaning that whenever you see somebody really railing against something that seems to make sense, whether they be some sort of fake MAGA or MSM outlet, you can always kind of tell. Let's see where their money goes from. Primary, affiliate A, affiliate B, affiliate C, right? Marching to the same beat. Coincidence? Logical thinking Q. And Q is reminding us because this structure is kind of coming back up again, relevant to today regarding foreign assets, deconstruction of foreign controlled intel, U.S. media, plus all critical. Okay, so we already know that the MSM is bought in, and we know why, right? We know that there's a very specific reason for why they peddle the narrative that they peddle. And we also know that the origin of this whole Russian collusion thing came from unofficial Five Eyes intelligence, right? Whether it's MI6 or whether it was outside of that too, you know, Ukraine, Russia, whatever this was, what we keep finding out is that it always comes from this sort of quote unquote foreign intel, right? There were a lot of foreigners getting involved with our elections, but there were also a lot of foreigners involved with this sort of fake installation of this Russia narrative that's fallen apart, right? And as we start to kind of trace back to it, we're starting to see all those sources. Now, you get a lot of these so-called conservative outlets that have also been doing the same thing, or alternative media outlets that have been doing the same thing. And we've called this out from time to time. We're going to talk a little bit more about that today, but this is essentially what we are talking about. Follow the money. You can usually figure out what fuels that narrative. Untouchable regarding state-backed. Well, many of them thought they were, and Epstein was definitely one of them, right? Epstein thought so. And of course, Epstein just cries out Mossad, right? First of all, the name. But, and I want to point out about his name. I've mentioned this before, probably on Twitter. I'm sure I'm not the first to have mentioned this. But if you break down his name, Ep coming from epi, meaning top, and Stein coming from rock, top of the rock, as in keystone. Epstein was essentially a physical keystone for so many people. And of course, this was clearly about human trafficking and essentially rape of underage children, right? So much of that we already kind of know about, but we're figuring out so much more. But there was also a eugenicist aspect to this. If you're not familiar with that, I highly suggest you check out my video just simply entitled, What the Frick? We were talking about the Frick Art Center, which was located across from Epstein's apartment. But anyway, this involved a lot of different things and the involvement of a lot of these tech giants who were kind of helping this whole eugenicist process go along. There's a lot involved in this, clearly, and I think we all know that. Puppets and puppet masters. And we know that Epstein was not just hooking up little kids for people, he was hooking up a lot of other things too. And why? Just because everyone has a slight perversion? No, much of this was used for blackmail. As long as we've got some sort of video of you doing something incriminating, we know that we've pretty much bought your loyalty for the rest of your life. And that's what really led so many people to do things that maybe they otherwise wouldn't have done. You do make one mistake, next thing you know, you've got some sort of insurance policy on you and you are bought into the deep state for so long. And that's how this thing became so pervasive. Puppets and puppet masters. And let's not forget Epstein's handler, Lady Ghislaine Maxwell, who is daughter of Robert Maxwell, Daily Mirror fame. Mossad. This is long time coming, big time families, and more is coming out about these folks right here, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that too. But that's essentially what Q is setting us up for. Let's move on for now. Post 3656, 57 minutes after the hour of 11, we get a Twitter status right here to Kingston Churchill. Now, whether I'm blocked or this is protected, not really sure, but this appears to be the original tweet, the whole progress, and it is a screenshot. There's a video of the Hong Kong protests going on. There was a shooting, and I'll take you over here to The Guardian. And there's a video here. Hong Kong protesters shot at close range by police video. And I'd love to show you this video, but The Guardian loves to hit me with copyright. But I will leave you this link down below, and you can check it out for yourself. Warning, some viewers may find this footage distressing. A video captured by local media shows a police officer firing 3 live rounds at demonstrators in Saiwan. The footage shows an officer struggling to subdue one protester before shooting another in the torso at close range. The protester falls to the ground before the officer fires twice more. All right, so you get the idea. It's getting violent out there, and this has really been escalating over the last few days. As a matter of fact, they're actually loading up a lot of these protesters on trains and heading them out of town, and the last time that happened, we know what the results were, right? So this is some pretty scary stuff, and I would just simply say, if you've got some friends that are out there saying, why do we need guns? Why do we even need assault rifles? First of all, you say, you know what, knucklehead, there's no such thing as an assault rifle. Number 2, if you want to know why we need these guns, just take a look at Hong Kong, and then don't ever ask that stupid question again. Well, Q says, what happens when people don't conform to their rule? What happens when people cannot defend themselves? Why do Democrats want to abolish the Second Amendment? Because they know that once we realize what their crimes were, we're probably going to want to exercise it. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Yeah, remember, your knucklehead friends are going to say, well, you know what? Well, back then we just had muskets. And you can tell them, yeah, well, they were military grade at the time. What did the framers of the Constitution fear the most? Well, Q just basically dials us in here to this archive link to the Declaration of Independence and highlights the part that we're talking about here, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, which we've seen it has. It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. We, the people. Yeah, look, we're not looking for an overthrow of government. We are not a bunch of violent people, but what we've seen is a lot of abuse of power. And we're seeing classic examples out there in China now. And this should really show the rest of the world exactly what we're really going through and what can happen when you allow that to happen, when you allow the government to take your guns, when you allow them to take your free speech. And now you've got this movement that the whole world is watching, and it really doesn't matter what your politics are. Truth is truth. When you start to see this kind of thing, it's going to drive you absolutely nuts. And so this really kind of, in my opinion, kills the whole why do we need gun argument. Just have a look at Hong Kong. Let's move on for now. Post 3657, 10 minutes out to the hour of 12. We get this picture right here entitled Pearl Harbor 2. We've seen pictures like this before. It's a beautiful picture. And of course, yesterday was December 7th, in which we remember the attacks on Pearl Harbor back in 1941, the attacks that launched us into World War II. And I think y'all remember how it went down from there. And I believe there's only a couple of remaining survivors now of that original attack. But of course, this launched a monumental campaign, our entrance into the World War. And sadly, in the last couple of days, we had this shooting that went on right before this. This was on December 4th. And if you remember, Q was posting about D1 through 6. And of course, during the days of December 1 through 6, we had a ton of different events that went on. This was one of them. Sailor who killed two and himself at Pearl Harbor Navy shipyard reportedly faced non-judicial punishment. So we're not going to go way into this. We talked about it a little bit the other day. The shooter, his name is Gabriel Antonio Romero, 22 years old. So it doesn't seem like this guy was really high up in the Navy. I imagine he was a petty officer at the time. But he ended up killing a couple of different people. Killed in the shooting were Roldan Aguinaldo Agustin, 49, of Ewa Beach, and Vincent J. Capoy Jr., 30, of Honolulu, according to the Honolulu Medical Examiner's Office. This was pretty tough. A third shooting victim, a 36-year-old man, remains hospitalized in stable condition. So pretty gnarly timing, and it just seems very strange from such a young man. They were saying that he was receiving treatment, which, you know, likely makes you think of the obvious kind of MK Ultra things and stuff like that. But either way, this was really, really odd timing, right? Right before they were going to have some sort of, they were going to have a ceremony. They have a ceremony every year over there. And this just seems to be odd timing. And of course, it came alongside the Pensacola shooting, the Black Hawk chopper going down, the New Orleans French Quarter shooting. There's been a ton of different events. This kid in Ohio that got caught with this quote-unquote reactor with his frequency burns. All sorts of strange events going on during this D1 through 6, right? But this went down, and I want to point out this from World News. Pearl Harbor shooting unfolded in 23 seconds. Well, wait a minute, 23 seconds, huh? Now, if you're not familiar with that, that is a number that the cabal loves to use, often referencing 322, the reverse of that being the Skull and Bones faction that we are dealing with often. So we see this number 23 pop up, and of course, that seems very suspect to me that this whole thing unfolded in 23 seconds. Well, we don't really know that exactly. Why is World News saying that, and why are they saying that in all caps? Well, I think you know. It sounds like a shout out to me. Post 3658, 17 minutes after the hour 12. I know. Where's George Soros? Ukraine? Who else recently traveled to Ukraine? Panic is real. All hands on deck. Yikes. And then we get this link here to Merriam-Webster. It's just a link that takes you to the definition of the word evil. I think we get the idea. George Soros is the definition of evil. Looks like he was out in Ukraine. A few people were, and so was Chanel Rion. And she tweeted this: "It was flattering to have George Soros and Viktor Pinchuk personally waiting for us at the airport last night in Kiev with their entourage of human Dobermans in little black Mercedes." Yikes, pulling a little intimidation there, huh? So for those of you not familiar, Viktor Pinchuk is the bazillionaire out there in Ukraine. And just picture him as another version of a George Soros, very similar. all kinds of crazy philanthropy that he gets wrapped up in. He's given tons of money to the Clinton Global Initiative and has worked with a lot of Hollywood stars and music stars, including Elton John and Paul McCartney, and just a lot of really, really sketchy stuff, including an art I guess so you can call it an institution or foundation that is working currently on a Holocaust film with Steven Spielberg. And Viktor Pinchuk's wife, Olena, is actually the daughter of the former Ukraine president, Leonid Kupchin. So these are deep state knuckleheads through and through. Keep in mind, this guy also has worked with guys like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, all these global initiatives that we're constantly talking about. Another version of George Soros. Well, also out there in Ukraine is Rudolph Giuliani and Yuri Lutsenko, who is the former Ukrainian prosecutor. And Chanel Rion tweets this: exclusive, concluded an extensive interview with Yuri Lutsenko in Budapest. Former Ukrainian prosecutor General Lutsenko, Ambassador Yovanovitch lied under oath to the American people in Little Adam Skiff's impeachment inquiry. Hashtag Yovanovitch lied. All right, well, there's a lot going on here. But keep in mind, Yuri Lutsenko, former Ukrainian prosecutor general, and he took over for Shokin, who was fired. Shokin was fired because of Joe Biden. He was investigating Burisma, right? And of course, now the head of Burisma has been indicted. So we know that there was something to it. Both Shokin and Lutsenko agreed, but both of them were let go from this. Now, Lutsenko is actually being investigated by Ukrainian officials himself, which suggests, of course, their own deep state knuckleheadedry that they're dealing with. But Lutsenko was also the guy that told us that Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch gave him a list of people to not prosecute. This was something very specific. And on that list was, of course, a George Soros outfit. So we see how this all kind of works out, right? And why George Soros and Viktor Pinchuk would indeed be out there trying to intimidate Chanel Rion. So this is very, very interesting stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing this. I imagine a lot of you have already seen it. I will probably watch this after making the video, so I'm looking forward to seeing that interview. Congratulations to you, Chanel Rion, and stay safe out there in Ukraine. But Q says, all hands on deck. We've seen this before, and this usually suggests some knuckleheadery. Now, given the fact that Pearl Harbor, that whole event happened just this week, and of course, we were just remembering December 7th, this makes me wonder if we are going to have a naval incident, considering Q is referencing all hands on deck, which is essentially a naval reference for everyone to be aware. So if you see something, say something. Let's move on for now. Post 36:59, 25 minutes after the hour of 12. We get a Fox News link right here, and now we're talking about the Pensacola, Florida shooting. Naval Air Station shooter wrote anti-American and anti-Israeli tweets before rampage. Of course, Mohammed Saeed al-Shamrani, who was said to be a second lieutenant in a flight training program for foreign military personnel at Naval Air Station Pensacola, posted a short manifesto to Twitter, AFP reported, citing the Site Intelligence Group, a group that monitors jihadist media. Okay, well, I'm amazed. I don't even have time to watch the OAN interview, and these guys got time to write all of these manifestos. It's amazing how all these shooters have these manifestos, right? And I mentioned in my video yesterday about POTUS kind of referring King Solomon. And of course, I was wondering if this was going to involve Saudi-Israeli relations, and it looks like I might be onto something. Now, I want to clear up that I mentioned Mohammed bin Salman, and of course, he is the prince. He was talking about King Salman. I just simply misspoke, but you get the idea. He actually ended up saying King Solomon, and I thought that was very, very curious, and now here we are. But I think the point that Q is making here is that here this guy posts his manifesto to Twitter, and yet everybody wants to go after 8chan. Why aren't we going after Twitter? I think we already know the answer to that, don't we? Posted on Twitter prior to shooting. Calls to ban, remove Twitter. Well, I don't see any of that. I only see it for 8chan. Calls to ban, remove 8chan for some reason. Congressional hearing. Well, we've had Jack show up to a couple of those, and of course the owner of 8chan also had to deal with that sort of thing himself. Why was there a coordinated effort to ban, remove 8chan? Because Q is on 8chan. We don't really need to ask ourselves why. We get the idea. We know it's because Q is on 8chan, and because Q has said that there are no other outside platforms or outside forms of communication, we know that Q is on 8chan. So it doesn't really matter what they post to Twitter. It doesn't really matter what they post to their Instagram. They're still going to say we need to go after 8chan. What was the reason? I just said it. What was the real reason? I just said it. Logical thinking? You just thought it. Q. Post 3660, 41 minutes out to the hour of 12. We get taken back to post 3655. And once again, we are talking about this structure here, this Mossad, U.S. mainstream and alternative media structure. And we get a Twitter link here, which I'll go to in a second. But I want to start you off with this tweet here, which seems to have started our story. Trust the plan, hope and change. The Bongino report is live. He used to be a Secret Service agent. Then we got a little snooze emoji right there. Enjoy the show, BonginoReport.com. All right, well, that's not very nice. Seems like a bit of a backhanded compliment right there. And Dan Bongino agrees, which is what takes us to this tweet. If you see at the bottom here, Dan Bongino says, I don't get it either. Unnecessary cheap shot. Indeed it is. And that's where we get the Twitter link that took us to Truth Seeker here, where we go one, we go all _ everyone. Congrats on getting a shout out there. Interesting word choice in the Twitter bio was, and they're pointing out the Drudge Report bio here. The Drudge Report was a US-based news aggregation website run by Matt Drudge. Okay, so we could talk a lot about the Drudge Report, and I don't want to go way into them, but this is clearly part of this structure. Now, the Drudge Report, up until really a couple of years ago, was doing some pretty good work, but then all of a sudden kind of did this 180. And they are a Rupert Murdoch outfit. So you can kind of get the idea where they may be going from there. But I want to turn your attention to this. This is an excerpt from the Wikipedia emails. And it says here, Jewish Stratfor, which is Israeli intelligence, Jewish Stratfor employee Eric S. Eisenstein stated in an email addressed to Zionist Stratfor head George Friedman on September 17, 2008. I know. Wow, take a look at this. It's small wonder that Politico is trying to follow the business model described below. I knew that Drudge was absolutely pooping money. I didn't know how much. From a targeting standpoint, Meredith, these are definitely players where we want relationships. If you hit the center of gravity, you don't have to worry about the periphery. And this is definitely the center of gravity. Please pass this along to Brian. He ought to be reading this blog. So you kind of get the idea. There's definitely an agenda here with Matt Drudge, and I think there always kind of has been. We're just seeing it so clearly now that President Trump is president, because that's really when it all kind of started to turn on its head. But we definitely see an agenda there, and there was definitely a shot across the bow to Dan Bongino, and Dan Bongino definitely felt it. Post 3661, 52 minutes after the hour of 12. We get this graphic right here referring us to Spygate. Never has a president left office to collude with others to impede the next sitting president of the United States of America until Obama. Yeah, it's amazing how flexible he became. Now, I want to point out, again, we get another curious title here to this JPEG, and another one of these ELM7G. Now, I've done a lot of book searching here, and of course, keep running into James Comey's book. But I wanted to point out that I did a couple of these into the Gematria calculator, and some of them were turning up the same results, which was actually Conan, which was the first result. I want to refer you back to a couple of these. For example, I was talking about this yesterday. You see this ELIT8, and this one here says EJ20, and there was another one down here. Here it is right there. ELIZF. So that's what I'm referring to. So if you take some of these and dump it into a Gematria calculator, you might be surprised at some of the results that you get. I'm not exactly sure if that's what we're going for, but I found it very curious, and I believe it was this one right here, the ELIT8, that referred me to the Conan. But I just wanted to point that out. Q is saying, ask yourself a very simple question, why? The why will be publicly answered soon. Dark to light Q. Well, we get it, because she was never supposed to lose, right? This was all about the systematic destruction of the United States of America, and that was the whole idea. They were willing to spy on anybody. It wasn't necessarily going to be Donald Trump until they found out that it was going to be Donald Trump. So it became Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's about one of the few people that you can really think of that would have been able to take this position on, because he was a billionaire. He didn't need their money. So many people enriched themselves. All these people in this picture right here enriched themselves before. Barack Obama was not a millionaire before becoming president. Now he's sitting in Martha's Vineyard with a sweet $135 million mansion. You get the idea. This was all about letting the United States self-destruct and letting some other world power rise, whether it's China or Russia. It could have been a number of different things. It just depends on the plan. But the idea was to go with this whole globalist idea, right? One world government, a new world order, something that we've been talking about for a very, very long time, something that they've been talking about for a very, very long time, and now all that darkness is coming to light. Post 3662, 5 minutes after the hour 1, Q says, knowledge is power. Think for yourself, trust yourself, do due diligence. And I'm going to repeat that. Do due diligence. You awake, and thinking for yourself is their greatest fear. Sheep no more, the great awakening Q. Yeah, let me kick a little tough love to you, ladies and gentlemen. I think most of you are feeling what I'm saying, so you're not going to really feel it that way. But as far as I'm concerned, if you're outraged at this stage in the game, you're already years behind. Outrage should have been 2001 when those towers came down. That's when the real outrage came. But we were misled back then. And so we don't really have the time to go back and reflect on it a ton, do we? We need to be proactive. That's how you win a battle. By being proactive, by doing due diligence. Don't ask yourself why the mainstream media isn't covering. We've already explained that. And I think that you guys already understand that. So in knowing that, there's no sense in throwing up our hands in the air being like, why isn't nobody talking about this? Because they're in on it. And that goes the same with these, you can call us alternative news channels. At this point, I think we're the first option for a lot of people. We are constantly bringing stories every single day, and we still can't keep up with this news cycle. So if there is a story that's gnawing at you, and you're saying, why is nobody talking about it? I've got a question for you. Why aren't you? Dumping stacks of paper on someone else's desk isn't going to help get your story told. Many of us are already swimming in stories. Now, I don't say that because I don't want people to share stuff. People share stuff all the time. It's brilliant. We're all sharing stuff. That's the brilliance of this. But doing your due diligence means doing your due diligence, not hoping that somebody else will do it. And it's the same for those of you who are demanding these high-level arrests. Well, I'll believe it when I see it. Okay, well, good luck waiting around feeling miserable. Be proactive, Patriot. That's how we win. And that's how we get this done. By doing due diligence, doing your part. And if you're not a storyteller, don't be a storyteller. Do what you do, but do it well and get moving. Otherwise, you're just complaining. Let's move on. Post 3663, 16 minutes after the hour of 1. Shoot, 12 more seconds. You got yourselves a... I know it. Takes you to the Twitter status of the Daily Caller, but we're going over to my page because it's the same tweet. Elizabeth Dances with Wolves. Warren apologizes for faking her Cherokee heritage in a bowling alley. Check it out.
But even so, I shouldn't have done it. I am not a person of color. I am not a citizen of a tribe. And I have apologized for confusion I've caused on tribal citizenship, tribal sovereignty, and for any harm.
So, you remember that time when I was trying to get into college and I wanted to get a little discount, so I told you that I was Cherokee? I'm not. I'm sorry. My bad. But now that we've cleared the air on that little lapse of judgment, wait till you see what I do on the global stage, because this girl's running for president! Big Structural Bailey! Big Structural Bailey! Somebody in the back's like, hey, Earl, can you get this lady out of here? I paid for 3 games. Anyway, Elizabeth Dances with Wolves. Warren is a perfect example of how this works. Corrupt. Think Harvard. And if you've watched my Weatherman series, you kind of get the idea of how these liberal universities really fund the people that they think are their little all-stars. So if that means giving them a little tax break, or who knows, maybe giving them a little bit of a scholarship or something like that, this is how Obama got through school. This is how the Obamas got through school. It's how a lot of people got through school, right? And they go right through these liberal universities that give them these fancy degrees and give them these honorary doctorates and whatnot, and they set them up through a whole political career full of funding, through NGOs. Next thing you know, George Soros is picking up a young Dances with Wolves saying, hey, I just so happen to have a Cherokee endowment fund, Miss Warren. You see what's up, right? Corrupt. Drain the swamp. Q. Post 3664, 28 minutes after the hour of 1. We get into the Twitter link, and it takes you to Trump's Karma on Twitter at Karma Trumps. Very nice for getting a shout out. And this is a sweet video. And again, I'm sorry I can't play it for you. Great video. It never gets old, but often gets deleted by Twitter. So enjoy while it lasts. So you can check this video out at Karma Trumps on Twitter, or you can just get the link from qmap.pub there. But it is a pretty cool video. The reason I can't play it for you is because it's got AC/DC music in the back. They're playing Thunderstruck. So it's a bunch of hoorah clips, and it's pretty sweet. We're not missing anything particularly pertinent, but it is a very sweet video, and it's kind of motivational. It's really well edited and whatnot. But like I said, a whole bunch of Trump hoorah. There's a little bit of Hillary Clinton in there and stuff, and it's pretty nicely put together. And of course, you've got AC/DC in the background being like, I was born in the middle of a railroad track. Thunberg. Anyway, Q says, fight, fight. You get the idea. Hoorah! Let's move on. 3665, 25 minutes after the hour of 3, we get the Twitter status to Jesse Waters, Waters World over there on Fox. You've heard about QAnon, but what is really going on with this conspiracy theory? A political science professor explains tonight. Oh, well, thank goodness. You know, after covering this nonstop nearly daily for the last couple of years, it's finally nice to have some professional step in and tell me what this all really, really means. And Jesse Waters feels the same way. He's like, really? Really, dude? And this guy's like, yeah, really? Anyway, major montage.
Oh, it's a montage, because we ain't trying to watch the whole dang thing now.
There's a conspiracy theory that's gathering momentum here in America. It's called QAnon. It first appeared online about 2 years ago. Its name comes from an anonymous guy claiming to have Q-level security clearance within the Trump White House. He posts online and has a very loyal following. Here to break this all down, Associate Professor of Political Science at the University of Miami, Joseph Yazinski. So, Professor, explain the essence of the Q belief system.
So this conspiracy theory started about 2 years ago on a dark website called 4chan, where people can post anonymously.
You know, the dark part of the internet, the part of the internet that's so dark you can't see anything. You need assistance because it's not like the rest of the well-lit internet.
Look, 4chan is just regular old internet. It's no dark web. It's just regular old internet. Wrong.
And someone started posting under the name Q. And they claimed to have secret insider knowledge about a battle that was going on between Donald Trump against the deep state. And this deep state was made up of satanic pedophiles who were selling children into sex slavery. And that Donald Trump's presidency was really about dismantling this network of satanic pedophiles, which included Hillary Clinton and John Podesta, and then sending these people off to Guantanamo, where they would be tried for their crimes and then summarily hung. And then when that happened, it would be called the Great Awakening.
You see, they're all a bunch of time-traveling, baby blood-drinking, pedophile Satanists, and they're selling pizza to Haiti in a basement. And pretty soon JFK Jr. is going to come riding out on a narwhal, shooting an AK-47, and everyone's going to start chanting, "Big structural Bailey!"
You see what's up? This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. This guy got educated on QAnon while having his continental breakfast, right? So, and you can see that Jesse Waters knows this too, but the important thing to point out is that this guy is taking all the different extremes. Now, there's a lot of truth to what he's saying, but the way he's presenting it is really, really poor context. And that is the problem that I have with a lot of these knuckleheads. These guys don't actually cover Q. What is his degree from Miami going to help this hurricane? He doesn't know anything about QAnon. You have people who cover it every single day and nobody wants to talk to them because they're going to get an actual answer here. Now, the great thing about this is that Jesse Waters kind of sets them straight right here.
Okay. And isn't it also about the Trump fight with the deep state in terms of the illegal surveillance of the campaign, the inside hit jobs that he's sustained in terms of Comey and Mueller and Strzok and Page and all of that as well?
Okay, I got to stop it again because I really think this is an important point to bring up, and I appreciate the fact that Jesse Waters did exactly what he did. As this guy was starting to go crazier and crazier and crazier, Jesse Waters brought him right back to brass tacks, which is what this really is about. Yes, this is about human trafficking. Yes, this is about pedophilia. Yes, this is about Satanism. Yes, this is about symbolism. It's about all of those things. However, when you're trying to reach out and red pill someone, which is what we're trying to do on a daily basis, starting off with those extremes is not a great elevator pitch. And Jesse Waters knows that. And so what he does is he brings it right back to the facts. The Obama administration spied on their opposition. And once they figured out who it was, they used illegal surveillance to do it, and then they used the FISA warrants to cover it up. This is something we can prove. This is something that we can show. And until we're able to share that and red pill our neighbors, our friends, our families on that alone, all of those other things are not going to matter to them. And the more you talk about it, likely the more crazy you will sound, even if you're right. Now, that might be just my opinion, but I've been doing this every day for the last couple of years. Doesn't make me an expert. It just means that I understand how this feels. Some people don't want to warm up to that stuff. It's really, really intense. And so just bringing it back down to these basic facts, I really appreciate about Jesse Waters, because that's how you legitimize what we're doing. Once you understand all of that, the why, which becomes all those other things, starts to really, really fall in line, and it becomes a lot easier to understand. So thank you, Jesse Waters.
So there are many, many facets to this conspiracy theory, and one way to think about it is that it's a meta conspiracy theory where there are just lots of different conspiracy theories weaved together. So part of it was that Trump was really working with Mueller to fight the deep state. Some of it was about things that the deep state were doing to stop Trump. But a lot of it tracked current events, particularly during the Trump-Russia investigation, because many of the QAnon followers believed that this was just a deep state attempt to take out a sitting president who was really a Washington outsider.
Okay. And the reason I'm doing this segment is because one of my good friends, he's a Q guy. And he's always telling me, Q says this, you got to look into this, Epstein and everything, and it's all connected. And I thought we'd look into it, so that's what we're doing here. How many Q followers are there? And then I have one more question for you.
So when we poll on it nationwide, we don't get huge numbers. So we get about 10% of the population thinks that QAnon is a good thing. And as far as conspiracy theories
goes, that's a significant amount of the population. Is this all conservatives, or are there liberals involved, or how does it break down?
It's both, and a lot of people assume that it's a far right-wing conspiracy theory when in fact there isn't anything particularly Republican or conservative about the people that right. follow it.
And then lastly, is Q Trump himself?
There's no way to know, and a lot of people have been accused of being Q. Some people think it's Trump. I've been accused of being Q. There's been a whole bunch of people who've been accused of being Q, but it's not me, and I doubt it's Trump.
Okay. All right, Professor, thank you very much.
You know, some people even think that I'm Q. Imagine that.
All right, well, this guy is straight up trash, right? But this is a pretty good thing, and I actually appreciate the fact that even though this guy doesn't really know anything about it, he's not deliberately going out to trash it like so many others before him, like maybe that knucklehead wuss over there at NBC, Ben Collins, has. While a biased POV shelters, protects the host, the overall discussion, eyes on, generates awareness. Indeed, millions are watching this. This is a big, big deal. And most content creators that cover it can already tell you this because we've dealt with this. We've seen this for so long. Now, this guy may have done some actual polling or whatnot. Who really knows and who really cares? And who cares if he's biased? The fact of the matter is he's bringing it up, and at least he was fairly fair with it. Now, you can probably suspect that a guy guy like Jesse Waters is pretty sure what's up with Q. He follows a few Q people, and a guy like Jesse Waters is already dialed in. As a matter of fact, he even joked about it a while back when his mom called in, teasing him about referencing Q. So he's very, very well aware, and I think he gave it a fair shake, and like I said, he brought it back down to the truth, and I appreciate that, because in this day and age, when we're really trying to legitimize ourselves, I think the best way to do that is to consolidate the narrative and really, really share the truth of this. It doesn't have to be the whole big picture going down all these rabbit holes and things like that. That kind of stuff leads to itself. That's part of doing your own due diligence, right? But the fact of the matter is, if you can understand what happened with the Obama administration, all the other things are going to start falling into line. And that's when you really start to see that true domino theory with having all these eyes on. Post 3, 6, and a couple of more 6s. 17 minutes after the hour of 5. I know, it kind of makes it all better, doesn't it? Here's a picture from 2017, June 18th, of Congressman Little Adam Skiff. Father's Day with my dad, my son, and my brother. To all the fathers and grandfathers out there, a very happy Father's Day. All right, well, thanks. It's a little belated, I guess. But anyway, if you look at the JPEG title, we got that curious ELN3. So there seems to really be something here. I wish I knew exactly what it is, but I don't right now. Anyway, something else suspect in this picture. Wait a minute. Does that say Mossad on your son's t-shirt? That's almost like you're advertising. Guess they ran out of care t-shirts. Adam Schiff linked to Mossad? Well, he only comes from one of the richest banking families in the world. Remember, J.P. Morgan Schiff. And so he comes from a long line of knuckleheads. And of course, we talked about a lot of his connections out there in Ukraine. He sent a few of his own little delegates out there to deal with some of those George Soros NGOs. So is Adam Schiff linked to Mossad? There's a pretty good chance he is. All right, Patriots, those are your Q posts for now. I want to leave you with one last thing here, and a hat tip to In the Matrix, who shared this with me earlier. We are on the Wikipedia of Yossi Cohen, who is the director of Mossad right now. He is also likely to be the successor to Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, outwardly, they kind of advertise him as a political opposite, but I'm not really so sure that's the case. Either way, drafted into the IDF in 1979, where he worked as a paratrooper and a squad leader, and then he was later drafted into the Mossad. It says here he ran agents in a number of countries over his career and led the Mossad's collections divisions from 2011 to 2013. He was the deputy director serving under Tamir Pardo. He was known publicly as Y in Hebrew in this post. Cohen won the prestigious Israel Security Prize for his Mossad work. All right, so this guy's been around for quite some time, really influential. As a matter of fact, it says down at the bottom, the Jerusalem Post listed Cohen as the most influential Jew of the year. That was in 2019, this year, so it sounds pretty current, right? Well, we've heard this Y reference from QAnon, and I'm showing you right there, post 3599, where we talk about a higher loyalty. A higher loyalty is the title of James Comey's book. So is this saying that James Comey has a higher loyalty to Mossad? How about that, family? Proud? Well, could very well be, right? We're starting to see these connections day by day. But it does look like this guy could become even more influential. It's hard to really know what's going to end up happening with Benjamin Netanyahu. He was supposed to set up a new government, and that never really went down. And there's a lot of people really trying to take him out. We'll have to see. But this is very, very curious. And I thought this was a pretty good reference to the Y, as it really, truly does make sense. Now, QAnon has also used the Y to reference Satanism and the Rothschilds and whatnot. And we've described that too. But I found this to be a really, really interesting pickup. So hat tip to In the Matrix. All right, Patriots, it's about a million other things I'd love to talk at you about right now. But if I don't get this video out now, those of you in the States will not get this video today. So I'm going to leave it at that. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if you have not joined me on one of these alternate platforms, please do so now and check it out down below in the video description. My Gab, my DropSpace, my BitChute, my Brighteon.com. It's all all linked down below. My P.O. box is down below if you'd like to send something old school. Thanks to all of you who do that already. I really appreciate all the little gifts. Please understand, I don't live at that address, so I don't check it as frequently as I'd like, but from time to time, it does all get taken care of, and I really appreciate those gifts. Thank you so much. If you've got information for me, please email me. My email is down below, and if you'd like to support the channel, my Patreon is also linked down below. It's all in the video description, and that Guardian article will be down there too, so you can check out the Hong Kong video if you desire. All right, kids, this is Sir Patrick Mack, and until next time, stay funky.